Forget everything Hollywood taught you about frontier gunfights. Those dramatic quick draws with gleaming peacemakers strapped to the hip were pure fiction. The deadliest weapons of the Wild West weren't the ones everyone could see. They were the ones nobody saw coming, hidden in coat pockets and vest linings. Compact killers that ended more lives than all the famous six-shooters combined. Today, we're counting down the 12 most devastating pocket guns that ruled the American frontier, and number 1 changed American history forever. Number 12. The Williamson Derringer. Picture: a weapon so small it vanished completely inside a gambler's palm, yet deadly enough to settle any dispute at point-blank range. The Williamson Derringer was the ultimate hideout gun of the 1860s and 70s, a single-shot pistol that outlaws and card sharps carried as their final insurance policy. David Williamson designed this tiny killer in Brooklyn around 1866. Measuring barely 3 inches long and weighing less than 4 ounces, the Williamson fired a .41 caliber rimfire cartridge. That's serious stopping power from something you could conceal in a vest pocket without creating even a hint of a bulge. The all-metal construction meant no wood grips to add bulk or catch on fabric during a desperate draw. Unlike the Philadelphia Derringers that required percussion caps and loose powder, the Williamson used self-contained metallic cartridges. Load it once, and it stayed ready to fire for weeks or months. Pull it from your pocket, thumb back the hammer, and squeeze the trigger. 3 seconds from concealment to corpse if you knew what you were doing. Outlaws loved the Williamson for one simple reason: plausible deniability. A Colt Army revolver marked you as armed and dangerous the moment anyone saw it. But a tiny pocket pistol could be explained away as simple protection. Respectable businessmen carried them openly, which meant criminals could carry them hidden without drawing suspicion. But that single-shot design was both blessing and curse. Miss your target or face multiple attackers, and you were holding an expensive paperweight. Reloading under pressure meant fumbling with a tiny cartridge while someone was trying to kill you. The Williamson's greatest strength was psychological. No one expects the well-dressed gentleman to be armed. That split second of surprise decided more frontier gunfights than fast draw speed ever did. Number 11. The Remington Double Derringer. What's better than one shot of concealed death? 2. The Remington Double Derringer solved the single-shot gambler's nightmare with the simplest possible engineering. Stack 2 barrels on top of each other, and suddenly your pocket pistol gives you a second chance if the first shot misses or you're facing multiple threats. Introduced in 1866, the Remington Double became the most recognizable Derringer design in American history. Its over-under barrel configuration measured just 3 inches long, chambered for .41 caliber rimfire cartridges that packed surprising punch for such a compact weapon. The barrels pivoted upward on a hinge for loading, and an oscillating firing pin alternated between upper and lower chambers with each trigger pull. Gamblers across the frontier made this their weapon of choice. In smoke-filled saloons from Deadwood to Dodge City, professionals kept Remington doubles in vest pockets, ready to settle disputes over marked cards or unpaid debts. Unlike bulky revolvers that telegraphed hostile intent, the Remington could be produced mid-conversation, its twin barrels suddenly appearing from nowhere. Real frontier accounts describe the Remington's effectiveness in close-quarter violence. An 1874 incident in Cheyenne saw a gambler drop 2 armed opponents before either could clear leather. Both shots fired in under 3 seconds. Another report from Virginia City in 1876 detailed how a Wells Fargo agent used his Remington to kill a stagecoach robber at arm's length when the outlaw's revolver misfired. But 2 shots meant 2 problems. The over-under design created significant muzzle flip. Fire the bottom barrel first, and recoil drove the gun upward, throwing off your aim for the critical second shot. The oscillating firing pin was clever but delicate. Frontier dust and black powder fouling could jam the mechanism, leaving you with a loaded gun that wouldn't fire when you needed it most. Still, for men who understood that most gunfights happened within spitting distance, 2 compact shots beat 6 visible ones. Number 10. The Colt New Line Pocket Revolver. Imagine Samuel Colt's engineers looking at the Derringer market and thinking, "We can do better." The result was the Colt New Line, introduced in 1873 as Colt's first purpose-built pocket revolver for metallic cartridges. This wasn't a scaled-down army revolver. It was engineered from scratch to disappear into clothing while delivering 5 reliable shots. The New Line broke from Colt's traditional design philosophy. Instead of the classic single-action mechanism requiring manual cocking, early variants experimented with double-action triggers for faster fire. Chambered in .32, .38, and .41 caliber rimfire, the New Line gave urban carriers serious stopping power in a package small enough to conceal in a coat pocket without printing through the fabric. City dwellers loved it. In 1870s San Francisco, Chicago, and New York, where visible gun belts attracted police attention and violated carry ordinances, the New Line allowed businessmen and professionals to stay armed without advertising it. Private detectives and Pinkerton agents adopted it as standard equipment for undercover work in urban environments where blending in mattered more than firepower. But Colt's rush to compete in the pocket gun market created reliability problems. The New Line's small frame couldn't handle the stress of repeated firing like their larger revolvers. Timing issues plagued early production runs, causing cylinders to fail to align properly with the barrel. The double-action trigger pull was notoriously heavy and inconsistent, making accurate shooting nearly impossible under pressure. Despite these flaws, the New Line's market impact was undeniable. Colt sold tens of thousands between 1873 and the early 1880s, proving that demand for concealable firepower was massive. It forced competitors to innovate or die, accelerating the evolution of pocket revolvers industry-wide. The New Line wasn't perfect, but it announced that Colt was serious about dominating every segment of the American firearms market. Number 9. The Suicide Special Picture. The cheapest, most dangerous firearm you could possibly manufacture. Then imagine flooding the frontier with hundreds of thousands of them. Welcome to the world of the Suicide Special. The name alone tells you everything about these weapons. They were as likely to kill the shooter as the target. Between 1870 and 1900, dozens of small manufacturers in Massachusetts and Connecticut cranked out ultra-cheap pocket revolvers under names like Tramp's Terror, Czar, Penetrator, and Bloodhound. Constructed from inferior metals with minimal quality control, these 5 or 7 shot revolvers sold for as little as 50 cents. That's roughly $12 in today's money. You could buy a weapon cheaper than a restaurant meal. The name Suicide Special came from their terrifying unpredictability. Barrels were known to burst during firing, sending shrapnel into the shooter's hand and face. Cylinders could explode from weak metal failing under pressure. Timing was so poor that bullets sometimes struck the frame instead of exiting the barrel. Loading one felt like playing Russian roulette with yourself. But here's the brutal frontier reality. Dirt-poor cowboys, destitute settlers, and desperate criminals couldn't afford a $20 Colt. For someone who needed protection against wolves, rattlesnakes, or hostile strangers, a Suicide Special was better than nothing. Ranch hands, frontier prostitutes, traveling salesmen, and outlaws at the bottom of the criminal hierarchy all carried these deadly gambles because that's all they could afford. Contemporary newspapers from the 1880s are filled with accounts of suicide specials catastrophically failing. An 1886 report from Abilene described a cowboy whose revolver cylinder shattered, embedding metal fragments in his wrist. Another incident in Tucson saw a would-be robber's gun explode in his hand, leaving him defenseless and bleeding while his intended victim walked away unharmed. Yet their cultural significance can't be dismissed. Suicide specials democratized frontier violence, putting firearms into hands that otherwise couldn't afford them. They proved that in the Wild West, desperation mattered more than quality. Number 8. The Sharps 4-barrel Derringer. Imagine holding a weapon that gives you 4 separate chances to end a fight, each barrel independently loaded and ready to fire, all in a package smaller than most single-shot Derringers. The Sharps 4-barrel Derringer wasn't just innovative, it was revolutionary engineering that turned pocket gun design on its head. Christian Sharps, already famous for his long-range buffalo rifles, entered the pocket gun market in 1859 with something nobody had seen before. 4 .30 caliber rimfire barrels arranged in a side-by-side over-under configuration. A rotating firing pin advanced with each hammer strike, firing each barrel in sequence. The entire assembly measured just 3 inches long and weighed barely 6 ounces, yet delivered 4 shots without reloading. The mechanism was brilliant in its simplicity. Break open the barrel assembly like a typical Derringer, and all 4 chambers were exposed simultaneously for loading. Snap it closed, and you had 4 independent shots ready to fire as fast as you could thumb the hammer and squeeze the trigger. No revolving cylinder to jam. No extraction issues with spent cartridges, but the Sharps 4-barrel earned its deadly reputation from one infamous event. While never definitively proven, persistent rumors connected a Sharps Derringer to John Wilkes Booth's assassination of Abraham Lincoln in 1865. The compact size and multiple shots would have made it ideal for an assassin needing to fire in a crowded theater and possibly fight his way out afterward. Whether Booth actually carried one remains historical debate, but the association cemented the Sharps 4-barrel as the assassin's weapon of choice. However, complexity came with drawbacks. The 4-barrel design was expensive to manufacture. The rotating firing pin mechanism required careful maintenance. Frontier dirt and black powder residue could cause it to skip barrels or fail to advance, and accuracy beyond arm's length was terrible, making consistent shot placement nearly impossible. Number 7. The Colt Cloverleaf Picture. A revolver cylinder that looks like someone designed it during a fever dream. 4 chambers arranged in a cloverleaf pattern that gave this Colt pocket gun its unforgettable nickname. The Colt Cloverleaf, introduced in 1871, was Colt's answer to a simple question: how do you make a pocket revolver that's both compact and capable of multiple shots? The Cloverleaf evolved from Colt's earlier house pistol design, which itself was an attempt to create the ultimate close-quarters defensive weapon. The name house pistol tells you everything. This was the gun you kept in your home, not the one you wore on your hip. But outlaws and gamblers quickly realized that what worked for home defense worked even better for concealed carry in the violent streets and saloons of frontier towns. The 4-shot cylinder was revolutionary engineering for its time. By eliminating the traditional 5 or 6 chamber design, Colt created a more compact profile that still delivered multiple shots. Chambered in .41 caliber rimfire, each shot packed enough punch to stop a man at typical pocket gun ranges. The unusual cylinder shape actually aided concealment in surprising ways. The rounded cloverleaf profile created fewer sharp edges to catch on clothing during a desperate draw from a coat pocket or vest. Loading was straightforward and simple. Remove the cylinder, load 4 cartridges, replace the cylinder, and you were ready for whatever trouble came your way. The solid frame construction gave it durability that flimsy suicide specials could never match. Cowboys, card sharps, and criminals across the frontier recognized the cloverleaf as a serious weapon from a serious manufacturer with a proven reputation. But the design had fatal flaws that eventually killed its market success. 4 shots meant one less than standard 5-shot pocket revolvers. In a gunfight, that missing round could be the difference between walking away and bleeding out in the dirt. The unusual cylinder shape, while compact, was expensive to manufacture compared to traditional designs. Colt's own new line pocket revolvers offered 5 shots at a lower price point, cannibalizing cloverleaf sales from within the company's own product line. Number 6. The Smith & Wesson model. Imagine holding the weapon that changed everything. The Smith & Wesson Model 1, introduced in 1857, wasn't just another pocket revolver. It was the first commercially successful cartridge revolver ever manufactured. Before the Model 1, every revolver required loading loose powder, ramming lead balls, and placing percussion caps. The Model 1 made all of that obsolete in a single revolutionary design. Horace Smith and Daniel Wesson partnered with ammunition innovator Christian Sharps to create the .22 caliber rimfire cartridge, self-contained metallic ammunition that could be loaded and fired without mess, without delay, without the constant risk of damp powder or misfired caps. The Model 1's 7-shot cylinder chambered these tiny cartridges, making it the fastest reloading pocket gun of its era. Shooters could empty and reload in seconds rather than minutes. The production numbers tell the story of its absolute dominance. Between 1857 and 1860, Smith & Wesson manufactured over 11,000 Model 1s. They couldn't keep them in stock. Demand outstripped supply constantly. By the time production finally ceased in 1881, over 250,000 had flooded the American market. That's not just success. That's complete market domination. But here's where the debate started. .22 rimfire wasn't a proven man-stopper. Frontier lawmen and experienced gunfighters questioned whether the tiny cartridge had enough power to drop a determined opponent. Stories circulated of men taking multiple Model 1 hits and continuing to fight. The shallow rifling in early barrels gave poor accuracy beyond 10 feet. Yet effectiveness isn't just about ballistics. It's about psychology and opportunity. A hidden Model 1 could be drawn and fired before an opponent, with a visible Colt army even realized violence was imminent. In saloon brawls and back alley ambushes, where fights happened at arm's length, 7 quick shots of .22 caliber beat 6 shots of .44 that you never got the chance to fire. Smith & Wesson's Model 1 proved that the future of firearms belonged to cartridge weapons. Every revolver manufacturer scrambled to compete. Number 5. The Remington Elliott Derringer. Picture a weapon so small, so perfectly engineered for concealment, that it could vanish completely in a closed fist. The Remington Elliott Derringer took pocket gun design to its logical extreme. Multiple barrels, minimal size, and a ring trigger that eliminated every unnecessary component. William Elliott patented this radical design in 1863, and Remington immediately recognized its potential. The Remington Elliott came in configurations ranging from 2 to 5 barrels, all arranged in a pepperbox-style cluster. But unlike old-fashioned pepperbox revolvers with their rotating barrel assembly, the Remington Elliott was fixed. A rotating firing pin struck each barrel in sequence as the shooter pulled the ring trigger and manually advanced the mechanism. The concealment was absolutely perfect. The 5-barrel model measured barely 3 inches long and weighed only 6 ounces fully loaded. Chambered in .22 or .32 caliber rimfire, it provided multiple shots in a package smaller than most single-shot Derringers. Gamblers loved it because they could palm it completely during a card game. Outlaws favored it for ambushes where detection meant death. Even respectable businessmen carried them as ultimate insurance policies that nobody knew existed until it was too late. The ring trigger design was pure genius for a hideout gun. No traditional trigger guard to catch on pocket lining during a draw. Just slip your finger through the ring, pull, and fire. The manual rotation system was slower than a revolver, but more reliable than complex self-indexing mechanisms that could fail when caked with frontier dust and grit. But accuracy was a nightmare. Multiple short barrels meant multiple points of impact, unless you were within arm's reach. Predicting where your shot would land required more luck than skill. The fixed barrel design also meant fouling accumulated with every shot, affecting subsequent rounds. And reloading all 5 barrels under pressure was time-consuming and nearly impossible with shaking hands. Today, original Remington Elliott Derringers command serious money from collectors who appreciate innovation. Number 4. The Volcanic Repeating Pistol. Before Winchester rifles became legendary, before Henry repeaters revolutionized frontier firepower, there was the Volcanic, a lever-action repeating pistol that looked like it came from the future, but was built in the 1850s. The Volcanic repeating pistol represented one of the most ambitious attempts to create a multi-shot pocket gun that didn't rely on revolver technology. The Volcanic's mechanism was revolutionary. A tubular magazine beneath the barrel held multiple cartridges. Working a lever under the grip ejected spent cases and chambered fresh rounds, allowing continuous fire limited only by magazine capacity. Models ranged from pocket-sized versions holding 6 rounds to larger variants carrying 12 or more. For outlaws and gunfighters tired of counting shots or rotating cylinders, the Volcanic offered something unprecedented. Keep working that lever. Keep firing. Keep overwhelming your opponent with sustained firepower. The company behind the Volcanic read like a who's who of American firearms history. Horace Smith and Daniel Wesson developed the initial design before forming their own company. Oliver Winchester invested heavily and eventually took control, transforming the technology into the Winchester rifles that would dominate the frontier. The Volcanic was the ancestor of the most successful lever-action rifles ever made. In gunfights where speed mattered, the Volcanic's repeating capability gave users a decisive edge. While opponents fumbled to reload their single-shot Derringers or rotate revolver cylinders, Volcanic shooters just kept the lever moving and the bullets flying. The intimidation factor was real. Watching someone unleash continuous fire from what looked like a large pistol made adversaries reconsider their life choices quickly. But the Volcanic's brilliant mechanism was betrayed by terrible ammunition. The rocket ball cartridge it fired was essentially a hollow-based bullet, with powder packed inside and a primer in the base. No brass casing, no reliable ignition. Power was pathetically weak, barely surpassing strong airgun velocities. Contemporary accounts describe volcanic rounds bouncing off heavy coats or failing to penetrate even thin wood boards. The ammunition weakness killed the Volcanic's commercial success. By the early 1860s, production ceased, but its historical importance can't be overstated. Became the foundation for Winchester and Henry rifles that genuinely did win the West. The Volcanic failed, but its children became legends. Number 3. The Hopkins & Allen XL Derringer. Picture a Derringer so reliable, so perfectly engineered for frontier violence, that both professional gamblers and lawmen trusted their lives to it. The Hopkins & Allen XL Derringer, introduced in 1871, became the gold standard for concealed pocket guns. When you absolutely had to make a shot count, this was the weapon in your pocket. Hopkins & Allen broke from traditional Derringer design with one brilliant innovation, a swing-out barrel assembly that made reloading faster and more intuitive than any competitor. Press a lever, swing the barrels open, eject spent cartridges, load fresh rounds, snap it closed. The entire process took under 10 seconds even with trembling hands. For a gambler facing multiple threats, or a lawman working undercover, those seconds meant survival. Chambered in .41 caliber rimfire, the XL delivered serious stopping power from its twin over-under barrels. But unlike cheaper Derringers that rattled apart after a few dozen shots, Hopkins & Allen built the XL with precision machining and quality materials. Its reputation for reliability became legendary across the frontier. Pull the trigger, and it fired, every single time. Gamblers made it famous, but lawmen made it respectable. Pinkerton detectives working undercover in criminal organizations couldn't carry visible revolvers. The XL's compact size and dependable performance made it standard equipment for agents who might need to fight their way out of a saloon full of outlaws. Town marshals patrolling rough districts often carried an XL as backup insurance when their primary revolver ran dry. Production numbers reflected its popularity. Between 1871 and the early 1900s, Hopkins & Allen manufactured over 50,000 XL Derringers. That's not just success, that's proof the design worked exactly as intended. When your life depends on 2 shots of concealed death, you choose the weapon with the best reputation. And on the frontier, that weapon was the Hopkins & Allen XL. Number 2. The Colt House Model Revolver. When Colt's engineers looked at the Cloverleaf sales numbers and customer feedback, they realized they'd been close to perfection, but missed it by one crucial element. The Colt House Model Revolver, introduced in 1871 alongside the Cloverleaf, represented Colt's true vision for the ultimate pocket gun. This wasn't experimentation. This was refined, proven engineering. The house model kept the Cloverleaf's solid frame construction and compact dimensions, but made one critical change: 5 shots instead of 4. That extra round transformed it from an interesting design into a serious defensive weapon. Chambered in .41 caliber rimfire, it delivered the same stopping power as the Cloverleaf, but with 25% more ammunition capacity. In a close-quarters gunfight, that 5th shot could mean the difference between survival and a cheap pine coffin. The balance was absolutely perfect. At just over 6 inches in total length and weighing barely 11 ounces, the house model disappeared into coat pockets without creating telltale bulges. The bird's head grip fit naturally in the hand, allowing fast, controlled shooting even under extreme stress. Unlike Derringers that required deliberate aim at arm's length, the house model's longer barrel and superior ergonomics made it effective out to 15 or 20 feet. That range advantage mattered in crowded saloons where threats could emerge from across the room. Professional gamblers, undercover lawmen, and wealthy businessmen all carried house models. In 1874 San Francisco, a Pinkerton detective used his house model to kill 2 armed robbers during a jewelry store holdup. An 1876 account from Deadwood describes a saloon owner defending himself against 3 claim jumpers, dropping 2 with his house model before the 3rd fled. These weren't lucky shots. They were the predictable results of a well-designed weapon in competent hands. Colt manufactured the house model through the 1870s, selling thousands before eventually discontinuing it in favor of newer designs. But during its production run, it represented the pinnacle of what a pocket revolver could be. 5 reliable shots, compact size, quality construction, and proven stopping power. So why isn't it number one? Because for all its technical excellence, the house model was evolutionary, not revolutionary. It perfected existing concepts rather than creating new ones. The gun at number one didn't just dominate the pocket gun market, it invented it. Number 1. The Philadelphia Derringer. Imagine a weapon so iconic that its name became synonymous with an entire category of firearms. A gun so influential that every pocket pistol that followed borrowed from its design, and so infamous that a single shot from one changed American history forever. The Philadelphia Derringer, crafted by Henry Derringer beginning in 1825, wasn't just the deadliest pocket gun of the Wild West. It was the original, the template, the gun that made concealed weapons legendary. Henry Derringer's genius was understanding exactly what customers needed. Not a massive cavalry revolver, not a long-range rifle, but a compact, powerful, reliable pistol that vanished completely into a coat pocket and could be deployed instantly when violence erupted at close range. His design was deceptively simple. A single-shot muzzle-loading pistol with a large bore, typically 41 to 50 caliber, mounted on a barrel rarely exceeding 6 inches. The walnut stock curved gracefully, fitting comfortably in the palm. German silver furniture adorned the weapon, turning functional death into art. But simple didn't mean crude. Derringer's craftsmanship was exceptional. Each pistol was hand-fitted, carefully regulated, and proof-tested before leaving his Philadelphia workshop. The percussion cap ignition remained reliable, even in damp frontier conditions that rendered lesser guns useless, and that large bore delivered absolutely devastating power. At typical pocket gun ranges of 3 to 10 feet, a Philadelphia Derringer could punch a hole through a man's chest that no doctor could repair. The gun's reputation spread like wildfire across America. By the 1840s and 50s, Derringer had become a generic term for any small pocket pistol, regardless of who manufactured it. Dozens of competitors copied his design, often misspelling the name with 2 R's to avoid trademark issues. But serious buyers wanted the genuine article, marked with Henry Derringer's distinctive signature along the barrel. Then came April 14, 1865, Ford's Theater in Washington. President Abraham Lincoln watching Our American Cousin from the presidential box. John Wilkes Booth stepped through the door, raised a Philadelphia Derringer loaded with a single lead ball, and fired one shot into the back of Lincoln's head from less than 6 inches away. That bullet didn't just kill a president, it altered the trajectory of American Reconstruction, shaped racial politics for generations, and cemented the Philadelphia Derringer as the most infamous pocket gun in history. The assassination demonstrated everything the Philadelphia Derringer was designed to do. Complete concealment until the moment of violence, devastating effectiveness at point-blank range, simplicity of operation under extreme stress. Booth's weapon performed exactly as Henry Derringer engineered it to perform. But the Philadelphia Derringer's legacy extends far beyond that terrible night. It established the entire concept of the pocket pistol as a legitimate category. Every Derringer that followed, every pocket revolver, every concealed firearm owed its existence to Henry Derringer's original vision. The over-under Remingtons, the Sharps 4-barrels, the Colt Cloverleafs, all were attempts to improve upon or compete with the Philadelphia standard. The Philadelphia Derringer deserves the #1 spot because it created the category, defined the standard, and proved that lethality has nothing to do with size. In the unforgiving world of frontier violence, Henry Derringer understood a truth that Hollywood still hasn't learned. The deadliest weapon isn't the one everyone sees, it's the one nobody sees coming. From the single-shot simplicity of the Williamson to the revolutionary engineering of the Volcanic, from cheap suicide specials to Henry Derringer's masterpiece, pocket guns wrote some of the bloodiest chapters in American frontier history, and Hollywood got nearly all of it wrong. The Western films you grew up watching show cowboys and gunslingers facing off in dusty streets, hands hovering over visible peacemakers, waiting for someone to draw first. Pure fiction. The real West was fought in shadows and surprise, in gambling halls where men drew hidden derringers across card tables, in dark alleys where outlaws pressed pocket revolvers against victims' ribs before demanding their money, in crowded saloons where professional gunfighters already had their hands on concealed weapons while you were still reaching for your visible holster. Concealment was survival. The gamblers, assassins, and outlaws who understood this lived longer and killed more effectively than any quick-draw artist. A 2-ounce derringer in your palm beat a 4-pound Colt on your hip because you were already pointing it at your enemy's chest while he was still processing that violence was happening. The evolution of these weapons tells a larger story about frontier society. As America urbanized, as cities enacted carry restrictions, as social situations demanded discretion over display, the market for pocket guns exploded. Manufacturers responded with increasingly sophisticated designs. From muzzle-loading Philadelphia derringers to cartridge-firing revolvers, from single shots to 5-shot cylinders, from crude suicide specials to precision-crafted Hopkins and Allen XLs. But the philosophy never changed. In a world where violence erupted without warning, where disputes over cards or cattle or women turned lethal in seconds, the smartest survivors carried insurance that nobody knew about until it was too late. Pocket guns gave ordinary people and extraordinary criminals alike the ability to project deadly force from positions of apparent helplessness. That's the truth about the Wild West that films will never show you. The most dangerous man in the saloon wasn't the one wearing 2 Colts and fancy tooled holsters. It was the quiet gambler at the corner table with a Philadelphia derringer in his vest pocket and the willingness to use it. The most successful outlaws weren't the ones who advertised their armament. They were the ones who looked harmless right up until they weren't. If this deep dive into real frontier weaponry opened your eyes to how the West actually worked, subscribe for more history that Hollywood buried. Hit that like button to let us know you want more forgotten firearms and brutal truths, and drop a comment telling us which pocket gun shocked you the most. Because here's the final lesson from 12 Deadly Pocket Guns. Size doesn't win gunfights. Surprise does. Power doesn't guarantee survival. Speed to first shot does. And the weapon that matters most isn't the impressive one everyone sees. It's the hidden one nobody expects until the muzzle flash lights up their final moment. That's not Hollywood's Wild West. That's the real one. And now you know the truth.